Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gale at Night. All right, let's get into this one because this whole thing is crazy and disturbing. Down in Columbia County, Georgia, the founder of the so called House of Prayer was taken into custody and booked into jail. This all went down this past Wednesday when the FBI, with the help from Columbia County deputies, raided a Westlake mansion at 3816 Honors Way. Yeah, not exactly your average parsonage. We're talking about a nearly 11,000 square foot estate with 8 bathrooms, 7 bedrooms, last listed for almost $2 million. So already the vibe is a little off for a church leader and things. Now let's pause right quick for a minute. Look at this house. Now look at the church. This is just one of the churches, But look at the house. Now look at the church. Anybody triggered yet? Now we've all seen it and I ain't even gotta explain it. And here's where it gets stranger. The man they arrested goes by Rony Denis, but according to federal authorities, that's not even his real name. They say he actually stole that identity back in 1983, which means the guy running this whole operation might not even legally exist. Kind of give you chills, right? Now, according to the Department of Justice, Denis is one of the 8 House of Prayer leaders who've been indicted on fraud and tax charges. The indictment lays out how Denis used that stolen identity to become a U.S. citizen back in 2002. And that same year, he launches the House of Prayer in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Later, he moves the headquarters to Hinesville, Georgia, and before long, they've got about a dozen locations across the U.S., most of them conveniently planted near military bases. Wonder why. And let me say this, some of those churches have already been raided. 3 years ago, the FBI hit one of them in Augusta, Georgia, at the location 2952 Old Tobacco Road. And they hauled out boxes of documents. So this wasn't exactly out of the blue.
The FBI raided a church in Augusta and its sister church in Savannah yesterday at the same time. The FBI says the raids are connected.
We spoke with former members of the group who say the church is a cult that targets service members. Our Will Volk is live in the newsroom. And Will, what other things are these former members saying about the church?
Well, Zaina, one of those former members claims the preacher told them he knew the date of the rapture and said he had prepared a place for the church members to go the day before it happens, and that's when she left the church. Now, another former member left about 6 years ago, but she says her son is still a member. She says her son hasn't talked to her since she left and says many members don't keep in touch with their families on the outside. We also spoke to a man who lives 2 minutes down the road from the church. He says he's had some experiences with them before.
Tried to go in one time and they said, I'm not invited. I'm not any type of candidate they're looking for. They don't come out every day just on Thursdays. And like, it's a real cult. There's nothing to play with. The women, they don't show their faces. They don't show their body. Everybody really stay on the property.
Now, just to clear up some confusion, the House of Prayer has no connection to the United House of Prayer over in on the Wrightsboro Road. They're a totally different group. Now let's get back to Denis and his inner circle. Names like Anthony Olones, 54 of Hinesville, charged with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and bank fraud. Joseph Fryer, 51 of Hinesville and Martinez, charged with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and bank fraud. Dennis Nostrand, 55 of Hinesville, charged with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and bank fraud. Gerald Robertson, 57 of Hinesville, charged with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. David Reap, 52 of Hinesville, charged with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and bank fraud. Marcus Labbott, 42 of Hinesville, charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and wire fraud. And Omar Garcia, not pictured, age 40, of Palm Bay, Florida, charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and wire fraud. Authorities say these guys weren't just preaching sermons. They were allegedly running a full-blown operation that specifically targeted military members and veterans. According to the indictment, church leaders basically control every part of members' lives. We're talking about arranged marriages and divorces, forcing people into church-owned housing, humiliating them in public if they broke the rules. And if you left, congratulations. You're on a list of traitors and cut off from friends and family still inside. Classic cult tactics. But the money scheme is what really grabs attention. Veterans pushed to enroll in the House of Prayer's Bible Seminary, and tuition was paid with their GI Bill benefits. The only problem? There was little to no instruction actually happening. The benefits ran out, but the church's bank accounts filled up.
I lost every bit of what I had.
And tonight we are hearing from a veteran who says that he is the victim of fraud involving the House of Prayer Christian Church. The church is at the center of a fraud investigation accused of scamming veterans out of their benefits. The church's Hinesville branch was raided back in 2022 for similar claims. And earlier this month, the church's leader was arrested and 8 others members were indicted on fraud charges and schemes related to taxes. Now, WTOC's Lindsay Stanger is joining us now from the WTOC 24-hour newsroom. And Lindsay, you spoke with a veteran who says that he was the target and victim of these claims. Lindsay.
I did, and he's not alone. The House of Prayer Christian Church has been long under scrutiny from federal authorities and former members who describe it both as a scam and as a cult. According to the federal indictment from earlier this month, the church scammed more than $3 million from veterans' educations and just from Georgia locations alone, and more than $23.5 million from all 5 of its locations.
It would say, if you leave the church, you will go to hell.
Words that play over and over again in Gregory Ward's mind, since he says he made the decision to leave the House of Prayer Christian Church.
They closed us out from the world. Like, we didn't know anything was going on.
In 2008, Gregory Ward enlisted into the United States Army, stationed at Fort Hood in Texas. Before his first deployment, he says the House of Prayer location in Texas invited him to service, but it wasn't until he got back from Iraq that he really got involved.
I deployed for a year, then I came back. That's when I was pretty much sucked in.
He says the church pressured him into leaving the military and getting deeper involved with the church, but he says his involvement cost him his sanity, his savings, and ultimately his veterans' benefits.
It tore me up mentally, so I'm still trying to recover from that.
Ward says that the church enrolled him into bogus Bible classes that were non-transferable and not accredited in order to receive funding from his GI Bill.
It was made-up classes by them, so I can't use them to this day.
The nonprofit Veterans Education Success has introduced the Student Veteran Benefit Restoration Act of 2025 to help victims like Ward to receive benefits that were scammed from them.
Those are earned benefits. They worked for them through service, and they should be able to get a productive outcome, which, to be honest, is really what everybody wants. That's what the American taxpayer expects. It's what veterans want to see for themselves and their families, and it's what we push for.
As the law stands now, once a service member like Ward uses their GI Bill, it's gone and they cannot get it back, except for rare cases.
The VES is also hoping to find a way that strengthens the standards for veteran education to avoid more oversight in defrauded benefits like this.
And then comes the real estate scam. Members were recruited as so-called straw buyers. Leaders would falsify VA loan applications. They will forge powers of attorney and buy homes under false names. They lease out those properties and rake in the profits. Authorities say just between 2018 and 2020, they pulled in over $5.2 million in rental income. Meanwhile, a lot of the straw buyers ended up with trash credit and foreclosures. So the church wins, the members lose. And let's not forget, the seminary wasn't even supposed to receive federal funds at all. That was part of its exemption in Georgia. But they still funneled in millions in veteran benefits and lied about it. Denis himself, he's also accused of filing false tax returns from 2018 through 2020. He reported around $165,000 one year, $155,000 the next, and then $247,000. Prosecutors say those numbers were fiction, just a fraction of what was really coming in. So when you connect the dots, you've got veterans being drained of their benefits, families being controlled, real estate fraud, fake tax returns, and a church leader who might not even be who we say he is. And a cherry on top, he's living in a multi-million-dollar mansion tied to a company called Union GL Park. But divorce records link it back to him. So much for vows of humility.
Yeah, the first thing that she and another former member that I spoke to on the phone told me was that they're relieved to see him behind bars. They also gave a window into the reality of the people living the crimes the FBI indictment alleges. Janessa Pappas Wright says she was a member of the House of Prayer Church in Hinesville, Georgia.
They went out for the King James Bible, but they just their interpretations were very demonic and evil, and they just used it to manipulate and steal from people.
She tells me she left the church led by Rony Denis in 2017. Today, Denis's mansion in Westlake was raided by the FBI, and the FBI unsealed a 26-count indictment. Janessa has her own thoughts on the raid.
I think people think of it as just like, oh yeah, he needs to go to jail, and oh yeah, the real estate fraud, but it's much, much deeper and scarier than that, in my opinion.
Janessa tells me she saw Denis and the 7 other defendants preach and work for decades, and that the FBI's report of their alleged control and manipulation of members of the church only scratches the surface.
They had given themselves over to him, and they were totally brainwashed. You're scared to do things because you feel like you might die.
The FBI indictment says the church used VA benefits to illegally pay for their Bible seminary, an amount that reached $23.5 million. Vanessa says she took part in that Bible seminary and never got a degree.
But I was in that Bible college for 9.5 years, and I was promised a degree, a theology degree, and 9.5 years later, I'd never got one.
The document released today shows many illegal dealings within the House of Prayer Church. Janessa says she lived them.
I do hope that Denis doesn't just walk free, because he's an evil, evil man, and I think it goes much deeper and darker than people realize.
And I did go to the Assembly of Prayer Christian Church in Hephzibah, which was one of Denis's churches. They did not give a comment.
Now let's fast forward to the latest twist, Denis's bond hearing. This started nearly a week after his arrest on Wednesday, September 17th at about 1:30 in the afternoon. And get this, it went on for hours with no decision. Around 6:30, Denis claimed he wasn't feeling well, so the judge wrapped things up. The news crews actually saw a Central EMS ambulance roll through the gates of the Federal Justice Center. The hearing's now set to resume September 26th. And the courtroom was packed. Nearly 100 House of Prayer members showed up, but only 20 were allowed inside, with another 10 in an overflow room. The rest stood outside waiting. Most of that day was 4 hours of testimony from a Department of Homeland Security investigator. And here's what came out. Apparently, the real Rony Denis came into the U.S. through the port of Miami back in 1980. Our so-called church leader just assumed his identity. And at one point, up to 3 people were using it. The government didn't even compare fingerprints until this year. Imagine that. That stolen identity is how Denis got into the U.S. military. Later, he tried to apply for citizenship through his service, but he missed the deadline and was denied. He also applied through sponsorship by his American wife. Homeland Security said they first flagged him during a sweep of passports tied to Social Security numbers of deceased people back around 2010 and 2012. They tracked down the widow of the real Rony Denis in Florida, and she told them her husband had died back in 1989. So the man we've been calling Denis, definitely not him. But wait, there's more. Y'all ready for this? The government dropped that old case because the statute of limitation had run out, which is why he was able to keep going. So what does that leave us now? U.S. Attorney Margaret Heap says Denis should stay behind bars. She calls him a flight risk and worries he could intimidate witnesses. Homeland Security is also moving to revoke his U.S. citizenship altogether. And Denis isn't the only one. His number 2 guy, Anthony Olones out of Hinesville, he has his own bond hearing coming up. Prosecutors say he should also remain locked up. The other 6 leaders, they were already granted bond last week.
An alleged church cult member, his first day in court just a day after the FBI raided his mansion in Columbia County's gated Westlake community. Rony Denis's charges include conspiracy to commit bank fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and aiding and assisting in filing a false tax return. We're told Rony Denis isn't even his real name, but an identity he stole in 1983, according to federal authorities. Your Liz Owen spoke with FBI officials today and has the latest on this case.
The 4-hour hearing ended on a bizarre note, with the court, the judge, asking 6 people sitting up front where attorneys usually to sit to stand up. He asked them if they misrepresented themselves as legal staff to the court to gain access to the courtroom. They said no, they represented themselves as simply staff. Then the judge asked them if they had a recording device on them, and one of them pulled out a pen that actually had a hidden camera on it. It ended with the judge giving them a stern warning that it all reeked of dishonesty, and that that they're lucky that he's allowing them to leave. Now, all this stems from a first appearance hearing from a raid that happened yesterday by the FBI. That raid was at a nearly $2 million estate where a House of Prayer leader, Rony Denis, lives in Westlake. 8 defendants in all charged with financial and tax fraud, mostly dealing with using LLCs and power of attorney to obtain property, at least 200 properties in Georgia, and allegations of targeting military members to access their GI Bill. The FBI held a news conference today urging other victims to plead.
So we're here today to talk to the individuals and families who were manipulated, exploited, or silenced by this organization, to let them know that we see you and we're here for you. The FBI is actively seeking additional victims of fraud schemes. So if you or somebody you know had contact with the House of Prayer Christian Churches of America or the House of Prayer Bible Seminary and believe your personal information, benefits, or finances were misused, we are asking that you please come forward.
All the defendants, minus leader Rony Denis and his top person, Anthony Owens, were granted bond today. One person was missing. From the defendants, there's 8 in total, and that was Garcia. The hearing for Denis and his top man will take place next week.
So to sum this all up, you've got a man living in a mansion, running a group critics call a cult, accused of scamming veterans, filing fake tax returns, pulling in millions through fraud, and on top of that, he's not even who he says he is. Right now, Denis is sitting up in jail waiting for his bond decision on the 26th. But this case isn't slowing down anytime soon. Honestly, it feels like every time we peel back a layer, another twist comes out. And something tells me this is just the beginning. As a matter of fact, this latest indictment of Bernardelle Semexent, 35, of Hinesville and Savannah, it focuses on child sex crimes, while the other ones were more financial. I'll be making a separate video about his charges and his involvement with the House of Prayer. That was a lot to unpack. Let's strike up a little conversation in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'll be happy to hear from you. This is Gail at Night. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for supporting. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and set the bell to all.